Alright, today we're going to be doing an install in a Volvo 2017 S60. We're going to be taking this panel off here along with this trim around the screen here, and we'll be going over how we run our wires and how to connect everything. So the first step will be taking this panel off here. You just need a pry tool for that. If you just pry underneath, from above, you can just work your way around. You get that out. There's one plug here for the hazards. There we go. Once you've got that loose, you'll need to take out the 6 screws here. That's a T25 Torx bit. So you've got the 2 long ones on the bottom, and then you've got 4 short ones up top. Alright, once you've got all those loose, you're going to have to take 2 more out. They're going to be on the back side in the cubby pocket here, and they're going to be facing towards you. And we'll show you that once we get them out. The way that I get those out the easiest is to take a 90-degree bit like this and use it. You can just reach behind here. Once you find them with your hand, you can get them out. Alright, we've got those 2 screws out. They're also about the same size as the 4 that were up top here. They're not too long. Once you've done that, you can just pry up on the bottom and the whole thing will lift up. There's going to be a plug in this corner down here. You're going to want to unplug that. There we go. Now that we've got that loose, you can see this is where your 2 screws were on the back side. Right there. And then you can see on the bottom they come through right here and right here. Alright, so we're going to set that panel to the side. Going to move on to the radio. The screws have been taken out of this one already, but the 2 screws will be in the side here. They're longer, just like the top 2 up here. So once you get those screws out, the radio will come out. You'll be able to unplug everything back here, plug all our cables in, but we'll go over that after we get the screen out. So to get the screen out, it can be a little difficult at times. So you're going to need a pry tool for sure. And I like to start in the bottom corner over here. Now, you want to try to get it over this lip here. Once you've done that, then you can move to the other side. And you're going to want to do the same thing. And then we'll go around the top. There we go. And once we've got it out, you can kind of see here, this can be in the way as it fits right in the bottom middle here. So you got to be careful for that as you pull it out. And then on the back side, you've got a few clips, you know, all the way around. They can get hung up very easily, so it can be a little difficult. I would just take your time getting that out so you don't break it. Next thing is taking out the screen, because we do need to plug in behind it. For that, you're going to be using the same T25 Torx bit. And one thing to note with these screws, as you can see here, these have like a tip to them. The tip typically indicates they're going to be going into a metal fastener, like as you can see up here, whereas our other ones that we pulled out from the other spots in the vehicle don't have that tip to them because they went into straight plastic. So we'll show you with this one. So this will be the difference. Whenever you put it back together, you want to make sure you get your screws in the right spots or else they won't stay in place very well. So we've got the screen out. We're going to unplug it. On the front of the screen, we have our touchscreen overlay here. We would show the install for that, but once you get it on here, it's very difficult to get off without breaking anything. You typically can use a razor to get it off. But all you have to do to install it is you're just going to peel the double-sided tape off the back, just the cover to it, and then stick it on the screen, make sure it's lined up square, and you'll have that installed. So now that we've got everything apart, we can go ahead and move on to how we're going to run our cables, so we'll be right back. Alright. So now that we've got everything kind of taken out, we can go ahead and start connecting everything up. So we're going to start with the display. This is our GVMF cable here. We've got the display port on one end and these 2 blue tips on the other. So we'll go ahead and plug that up. We'll plug the male side into the actual display, and then the female will go to the factory male. There we go. Now that you've got that hooked up, you can plug the power back into it. And then from there, you're going to want to route your cable. The way that we've done it in this vehicle is if you look in the glove box, there should be a hole in the upper left-hand corner. and you can actually see it straight through the hole where the air vent was. So in that case, you can actually run your wire through the back here, around the air vent, and then you can go down through that hole. And there we go. Get caught up there. Pull our slack through for now. We'll go ahead and install the display. And we'll go to the radio next. And I like to just disconnect everything back here. Reconnect it all back when we're done. Alright, so now that we've got that out, we're going to be hooking up our main harness here. This is a quad lock. When we hook this up, we are going to have to take the fiber optic from this quad lock here. If you can see on top, there's just a little clip right here, so we'll push that up, and you can pull that out. Now we've kind of taken back some of the factory tape here, and that'll just give us room to stretch this over to our plug. And you want to make sure you put it back in the same slot that's on the left side here. Well, right if you're looking at it from this orientation, left from this way. And just like that. And then we'll connect this to the factory quad lock. And now with this radio, it can get in the way, having the quad lock back here. So whenever you put the radio back in, you want to make sure this bit right here with the factory plugged into the female is tucked down below the actual radio here. It should be like below this bar. Before we put everything back in, we do need to run those cables, and then we're also going to hook up our USB. This is our USB here. This is one that we've made. The one that you will have will be a little bit different. It'll most likely just be all black instead of this gray. And this is the side we're going to be plugging into the back of the radio. As you can see, it's just like the factory one here, but this factory one won't get plugged back in. That'll be disconnected. So we'll go ahead and plug that into the radio here. We'll put our new quad lock. Oh, sorry. I actually need to run this wire first. And for that, I'm just going to go up through this corner right here. And we're going to go the same way we did with that display cable. We're going to run the USB as well. Now we got those ran, we can go ahead and plug everything up. I like to start with everything that's got longer cables first. That way you can keep the radio furthest out as possible. It makes it a little bit easier to plug everything up. Alright, and we've left this factory one disconnected like I mentioned earlier. So we're just going to push it down below where we're going to put that quad lock at. This part we might have to play with it a little bit just to get it to seat correctly. There we go. So we got that seated now. We can go ahead and screw everything in and put it back together. But lastly, we are going to install our GPS antenna. I would recommend putting that up below the dash right here. Since we don't have the screen fully in yet, we're just going to tilt it down a little bit, and we're going to run that GPS through there. While I'm running the GPS antenna, I do also have the touchscreen overlay. I'm running that wire. So we'll show you how to connect that as well. And that's going to be right here. It's a tiny little ribbon cable. Well, not a ribbon cable, but a holder for the ribbon cable that's on here. I've ran it the same way, and I'm just going to run it underneath the display. It's going to need to plug into the bottom. Alright, so I've got all that ran. I'm going to stick the GPS antenna back here. I'm actually putting it right above this vent right here, but a lot further back, so it would be about right here underneath. There's a nice flat plastic area here, and we have that adhesive on the bottom of the GPS antenna, so it shouldn't be going anywhere. I'm just going to go ahead and pull all this slack through so I can cable manage it afterwards. If you have extra slack that you want to cable manage later on, it's good to just run it through this hole because it's not going to be in the way of the install until you put that last piece of trim in there. So now we've got the touchscreen overlay here, and we're going to need to plug it up. And for that, we need this cable here. Now, the pins on this, as you can see, are on the bottom, away from the latching mechanism. We want to make sure that those make contact with the pins on here. So this side has the pins, and then this side does not. So we need to flip this way. And it can be a little bit of a pain to get in there perfectly. You'll feel it kind of seat into place, and once you've done that, then you lock that down. And now it's in there. One thing to note with that wire that we just hooked up, it's down here. It might be hard to see on the camera, but it's running in front of this air vent right here. You want to make sure to just push it over so it's around the air vent and not in front of it. Otherwise the air vent, you know, is going to be blocked by that. It's going to be hard to get back in. So from here, we've got everything plugged up. We can go ahead and start screwing everything back in. First thing I'm going to do is put my display back in. Alright, and we were missing one screw, so we're not going to be putting this corner one in. Obviously you want to put that in if you have it. And then from there we're going to put the center console back on. Actually, sorry, scratch that. Before we do that, we do need to take care of this. And we'll come back with a zip tie and zip tie that up. But for now, I'm just going to put it right here for y'all, so you don't have to worry about it. And then to get this back into place, it can be a little bit tricky. I like to squeeze in just a little bit in the middle. Obviously, don't squeeze too hard or you're going to break it. Seat in the vent, not fully. And then you want to get this over that, over the little lip. And sometimes the pry tool actually helps here, using it the other way. So instead of prying things back towards us, we're going to use it to push over, just like that. You just want to push in all the corners, make sure everything's seated well there, and now we've got that back in place. Now we can put the center console part back on. Don't forget this plug down here. And yeah, just make sure to push down. Once you get it all lined up, you'll feel it sink into place, and then from there we can go ahead and put all the screws in. Other thing to take note of is this plug here for the hazards. Make sure it doesn't get trapped below the trim down here or anything like that. You don't want to damage it. And we'll put our two long ones in right here. And we gotta put this back in. Don't forget to plug in the hazards. And give them a test. Make sure they work. And that goes in there. And then the last thing is going to be the two screws on the back that we talked about earlier. And now we've got everything together. Last thing is just going to be finishing the cable managing and plugging everything in. So we'll be right back. Alright, so we've got all the cables in here now. We've got everything put back together. We've got our V-line here. We do have the cover off right now. That's just because we're kind of working with it. But the next thing will be plugging everything in. So we'll start with this cable here. We mentioned the touchscreen earlier. You're going to have a cable coming from the touchscreen that's going to be a 4-pin like this. And in the box that comes with the touchscreen, you also have this little controller here. And this cable is the VOLSC cable. It'll come with all this. It should already be plugged in. But just for reference, the 6-pin on this cable, it also has a touch label on it without this tape on it, will go onto the controller here. And the 4-pin will plug into here. This is going to be for the GPS antenna right here. It's the 4-pin. It's also labeled with a GPS label underneath the tape. And these are your two video inputs and an auxiliary 3.5mm input. We're not going to be using those this install. And that's going to plug into the AV1 slot, which is on the back side of the V-line here. There we go. We're just going to move along through the cables. This one right here is the USB Mini. It's plugged into the back of the radio. This is our GVMF cable that's plugged into the back of the display. This is our main harness here, plugged into the back of the radio. And it's also got the factory microphone here, which runs to the other side of the V-line next to the camera AV input. It goes into the microphone slot. And whenever you seat that, you want to make sure that you don't just push it in a little bit, you want to make sure you feel it click into place. And last is going to be our USB here. And this is just for the USB extension for you to plug your phone into, or pretty much any device. You'll want to put that in USB 1 just in case you use CarPlay. It'll always work. It'll work with any other device that works on the V-line through USB 1. And now that we've got all those there, we're all good. Put this back in the glove box and we can turn it on. Alright, so we've turned the vehicle on now. We've got the V-line installed. We're going to go to the iPod source in order to find it. So we'll go right here. We'll flip over to the V-line. As you can see, the touchscreen is working here. And you can also use the knob here and the OK button, along with the exit button to exit things. So for example, we're in here, we're back out of it using the exit button. We've got our CarPlay here, we've got a bunch of things installed actually on this V-line. We've got the factory UI, which of course will take you back to here. And we'll go back out to that. There we go. Yeah, everything's working here, steering wheel controls work as well. And we'll do another video on our channel showing CarPlay, Android Auto, and just kind of general usage for this one. Alright, so one other thing we wanted to add to the video for the installation is touchscreen calibration. If you do buy the touchscreen kit and you are going to use it, we have this app on here called Touchscreen Calibration. You can add it by clicking on a gray plus sign like this, going to Apps, and then if you scroll down, you'll find it right here, Touchscreen Calibration. Once you click on that, it'll pop up with these 5 different points here, and you're just going to touch those. You want to try to hit right on the middle of them, and then it'll tell you how far it was off. And I've got the touchscreen calibrated here, and we can use it normally.